My father has kept, on the wall of his study, the same photograph for 22 years. It is from my first semester of college. I am 19, sitting on a campus lawn, wearing a university sweatshirt, smiling in the way 19-year-olds smile. In photographs they don't know will become evidence in an ongoing family argument. I look exactly like someone who is going to graduate in 4 years and go on to a stable, comprehensible career. I left that university 11 months after that photograph was taken. I did not graduate. I did not transfer to another program. I did not, as my parents hoped for the first 2 years, take some time off and then return to complete my degree. I left, and I stayed left, and I built a company in the apartment I rented with the money I had saved from 3 years of part-time work. And I did not look back in the way that people who are certain about a decision do not look back. My father kept the photograph. I think he kept it as a reminder of what I had been before I made the choice he could not forgive. A record of the version of me that had done things correctly, before the version who dropped out and spent 12 years being wrong about everything. I am 31 years old. I left school at 19, 12 years of being in my family's framework. A cautionary tale. Last year, a journalist from a technology publication came to do a profile on me. During the research, she asked for some family context. I mentioned my father. She mentioned, as part of the article, that I had dropped out of college at 19 and that my family had not supported the decision. The article's headline, which I did not choose, was, "She left college at 19. Her parents thought she was ruining her life. Then she built a $400 million company." My father read it on a Tuesday morning. He called me at 7:45 a.m. The company I built is in the technology space, specifically in infrastructure software, which is not glamorous but is extremely necessary and has a particular quality of stickiness that means once large organizations start using your product, they tend to continue using it for a very long time. This is good for business. It is also, frankly, not the kind of work that makes for interesting dinner conversation, which contributed to the invisibility problem. I dropped out for a specific reason that seemed obvious to me at 19 and that I have spent -1 years explaining to various people with varying degrees of success. The reason was that I had identified a problem in a specific technical area. I had identified a solution. I had tested the solution. And the window for building that solution was closing in a way that waiting for more years to finish a degree would not accommodate. My father did not accept this reasoning at 19. He did not accept it at 22 when I had the company registered and to clients. He did not accept it at 25 when I had 20 employees and a Series A. He was working from a framework in which a college degree was the foundation on which everything else was built. And my departure from that foundation was not something that later stage success could fully repair, because the departure itself was the wrong choice, regardless of outcome. He said this explicitly at Christmas when I was 27 and the company had 45 employees. In a conversation that I can still replay in detail if I choose to, he said, "You got lucky. That doesn't mean you were right." I said, "I disagree." He said, "You could have done this after finishing your degree." I said, "No, I couldn't have. The window closed." He said, "You don't know that." I said, "I do know that. I was there." We had a version of that conversation every 18 months or so for 12 years. The specifics changed as the company grew. The underlying structure did not. My mother's version of this was different from my father's. My mother is a pragmatic person. She cares about outcomes. She had watched the company grow for 12 years and she had, somewhere around year 7 or 8, quietly updated her understanding of where things stood. She did not announce this update. She did not reverse her earlier position explicitly. But she stopped asking about backup plans. She stopped forwarding articles about the importance of credentials in the technology sector. She started asking about the company with a quality of genuine interest that was different from the polite concern of the earlier years. My father did not make this update. He loved me. He called on birthdays. He came to Thanksgiving. He asked about work in a way that was careful and slightly formal. The way you ask about something that you are aware is a sensitive subject. But the photograph stayed on the wall, and the framework that the photograph represented, the 19-year-old in the sweatshirt who was supposed to graduate and do things correctly, stayed in his mind. Until the article. The journalist who wrote the profile was thorough and fair and very good at her job. She spent 3 weeks reporting. She spoke with my investors, my early employees, people who had worked with me at various stages. She was present at our offices for several days. She asked about my family once, in passing, and I said that my parents had not been supportive of the dropout decision, that this was a source of ongoing tension, that I had made my peace with it. She asked, "Have they come around?" I said, "My mother has, mostly. My father has a different relationship with the decision." She said, "Does that bother you?" I thought about it honestly. I said, "It used to bother me more. Now it mostly it's the background noise of a long argument that neither of us can fully win because we're measuring success by different things." She wrote all of this down. The headline, as I mentioned, was not something I approved or was asked about. By the time the article published, the headline was the headline, and the article was out, and my father was reading it on a Tuesday morning. He called at 7:45. I was in a meeting that I stepped out of. I saw his number on the screen, and I felt the familiar preparation that comes before a conversation you have had many times and know how to navigate. He said, "I read the article." I said, "I know. I should have given you more notice." He said, $400 million. I said, "That's the current valuation." "It changes," he said. He stopped. A long pause. Then, "Sarah." I said, "Dad." He said, "The photograph. I have a photograph in my study from your first semester." I said, "I know the one." He said, "I've been for 12 years. I've been." He stopped again. My father is not a man who has difficulty expressing himself. He is, in fact, a man who is quite precise with language, which makes the moments when language fails him unusual. He said, "I owe you an apology." I said, "Dad." He said, "No. Let me say it. I owe you an apology. I told you that you got lucky. I told you that being right about the outcome didn't mean you were right about the decision. I maintained a position for 12 years that it was wrong, and not just because of the number in that headline." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I mean, I was measuring the decision by whether it fit my framework, not by whether it was right for you. You knew something I didn't, and you tried to tell me, and I didn't listen for 12 years. I sat with that for a moment. I said, "Thank you for saying that." He said, "The photograph." I said, "Keep it if you want." He said, "I'm going to move it, not throw it away, but move it. I want to put something different on that wall." I said, "What?" He said, "I don't know yet. A picture from now, maybe. Something current." A pause. "Will you come for dinner this weekend? Your mother and I, we can." He stopped. "I want to hear about the company, really hear about it. Not the polite version." I said, "Yes, this weekend." He said, "Good." A pause. "Sarah." I said, "Dad." He said, "I'm proud of you. I should have said that earlier, much earlier." I drove to my parents' house that Saturday. My father had moved the photograph. It was in the hallway now, not the study, still present, but no longer occupying the central position. On the study wall where it had been, there was a framed printout of the article. He had framed the article. I looked at it for a long time. Then I looked at him. He said, "Too much." I said, "A little much, yes." He said, "I can take it down." I said, "Leave it for now." He laughed, actually laughed, in a way I hadn't heard in years. We had dinner, 3 hours. My mother made the food she makes when she wants a conversation too. Go well, the dishes that have been in her repertoire for my entire life. My father asked about the company from the beginning, the first client, the early employees, the series and what it had meant. I told him all of it. I want to tell you what I think the real story is. Not the $400 million, not the article headline, not the moment my father called at 7:45. The real story is 12 years of building something while the person whose opinion mattered most had decided that the building itself was the mystic. And finding a way to build it anyway. There are two ways to read that. One is that the disapproval was fuel, that having something to prove gave the work an extra quality of determination. That is partly true. The other way is that building something for 12 years while carrying the weight of your father's unrevised disappointment is not a clean story of perseverance. It is sometimes exhausting. It is sometimes lonely in a specific way that success doesn't fix. It is the particular experience of not being seen by someone who loves you, which hurts differently than not being seen by someone who doesn't. I don't tell this story to make my father the villain. He is not the villain. He is a man who loved me and was afraid for me and expressed that fear incorrectly for a very long time. He updated his view. He said he was wrong. He moved the photograph. That matters. Tell me in the comments, have you ever built something that the people closest to you didn't believe in? How did you carry that? And what happened when they finally saw it? I read everyone.